Well, hello and welcome. Hey, you guys. Guess there's no way to get rid of that, is there? I guess you guys don't care. I care though. So, hello. Let me know that you can hear me. Tell me where you're coming in from. This really is our grand finale. I see Lisa is here from stormy North Germany. Welcome. I see all of you guys. So do me a favor, say hi when you come in so I know where you're from. Finally, you were able to log in. Right on. RM. Hello, Nitya from India. Welcome. We got all you lovelies from all over the world joining us. So say hello. We'll get settled. I've got my notes below me because this is where I'm going to be grabbing your questions from as well. So if you see me going up and down, you'll know why. Well, hi, Ottawa, Canada. How are you, Christina? We got Western Massachusetts in the house as well. Denmark's here, Calgary, Arizona. Wow, right on. Hello, Miami. I'm so happy to see all of you. We got Seattle in the house. How you doing, Lorena? Woo! So we're finally to it. I know you find it hard to believe that this is the grand finale. This will be our final live for Boundary Bootcamp season 2019, because today actually is the last day for people to join the Boundary Bootcamp course for 2019. So we just figured, why not give you the 4 hidden, basically the sneakiest boundary killers going is what we're going to be hitting today. I'll also be answering your questions. So do me a favor. If you have a question that you want me to consider for the end, because that's what I'm going to be hitting them, make sure you put like more than one question mark in front of it so that my team can grab it, because there's lots and lots and lots of comments, obviously, because there's lots and lots of people. And it's easier for them to locate the questions that somebody wants me to try to answer at the end. So if you would put like 3 or 4 question marks in front, they'll be able to grab them easily, which would be great. We got Croatia in the house. Oh my God, Ivana, I think I'm going to Croatia in the spring. I'm so excited. We got Ohio in the house. The link in the email was dead. I came to the live stream on your YouTube as I figured it would be here. Well, I'm so glad that you found it, even with a dead link. So I hope other people are finding it too. You know, lots of emails, lots of stuff. Thank you for all the great information. I love you, Terry. Well, I love you too. We got Sweden in the house. Excellent. We got Paris in the house. Paris loves us too. I love you too. Michigan's in the house. So much happening. Minnesota's in the house. Houston's in the house. Wow. Welcome. I'm super excited. So we're going to drop right into what it is we're actually doing today. So I'm going to let you know, I'll be teaching like I've been. Any of you who did Boundary Palooza, then you know I teach for about 35 to 40 minutes. Then I'm going to go into the questions. And I'm also going to be answering some of your questions, because I've already gotten, some people knew we were doing this. Some questions have already come in. I'll be hitting those. I'll also be hitting questions about the course, Boundary Bootcamp 2019, because today's the last day. So all of that, I'm going to hit everything at the end when I'm done actually teaching. So what are we talking about today? The 4 hidden boundary killer behaviors that are super duper sneaky and that you're probably doing in your relationships right now. If I'm being honest, you probably are. So if you have any lavender oil or anything that you like, I've got my baby one. Take a nice big inhalation, why don't you? I'm doing the same. Yum. Now, gently close your eyes. And even if you're just joining, get right into this little intention setting. Take a deep breath, and with your eyes gently closed, I just want you to visualize coming to this grand finale workshop with an open heart and an open mind, which means a beginner's mind, with the intention to learn something, anything, any information that will elevate you to your greatest good, right? Anything that will lessen your suffering and increase your joy. That is what we're looking for. Now keep your eyes gently closed, and we're just going to ponder a question or two, which has to do with the what I'm going to be covering today. And I just want to get into the part of your brain where your boundary function and dysfunction lives. So when you find yourself in a conversation, just listen. When there's a lull in that conversation, do you feel compelled to fill that space? Do you experience that as like an uncomfortable silence? Do you talk? Do you feel weird? Do you feel uncomfortable? So that's the first one I just want you to think about. And then the second one is if you're talking to someone on the phone and you need to get off the phone, do you ever say the opposite? Do you ever say, I've taken up enough of your time, I'll let you go now, because you think that's more polite? But really think about how direct or indirect you are with even what seems like a very benign type of communication. Do you ever say, I'll let you go now, when in your heart what you really mean is, I have to go now? All right, now open your eyes and you can share in the comments what came up for you. When there is a lull in a conversation, do you find yourself wanting to fill it? Do you find yourself uncomfortable? Well, hello, all these people who are still joining, my goodness. Yes, and when you need to go, do you say, I'll let you go, or I've taken up enough of your time? The people are like, yes, yes, yes. I want to fill the space. Yes, lots of words, guilty of not being direct. So many of us are, but I'm trying to just get you into that place in your mind. And again, all of this is about awareness, right? Not about judgment, because we're not judging. We're all just trying to up level our communication skills and our boundary acumen, right? Yeah, people are saying I do both. Yes and yes. Oh, definitely guilty. All right. So for those of you, if you don't know me, if you're literally just stumbled upon this live that we're doing, lucky you. My name is Terry Cole, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the founder of Real Love Revolution and Boundary Bootcamp. Many of you know, because a lot of times people will say, well, why you? Like, why you to sort of teach this stuff? So many of you know the beginning part of my story, like what inspired me to get really interested in boundaries, which was that before I became a licensed psychotherapist, I was a talent agent for supermodels and celebrities for almost a decade. And that was a very unhealthy business to be in. Talk about boundaryless. So there was an expectation that I would be available at all times, day and night, even though I was kind of the boss. I still, somebody called me and they were in Europe and it was 4 a.m. I still couldn't not pick up my phone, So that made me exhausted and made me sick, literally, actually sick. I eventually was diagnosed with cancer. But throughout that year, I used to refer to it as my year of fear. I had something else that really, and I don't really tell this story all that much because it's kind of painful and still scary, even though it's a long time ago. But this is the real profound pivot moment in my life, was that I had finally met my husband. The day we got engaged to be married, we were going out to celebrate, like super, super excited. Because really, I never thought I was going to get married in this lifetime. So it was a friggin' miracle that I'd met anyone that I wanted to marry. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And we were actually going out to celebrate. And I ran back into the house to go to the bathroom. And it was summer. And so the window was open a little bit. It was like right behind my head. And I could hear Vic, that's my husband now, who was my fiance then, my new fiance. And I heard him just kind of say my name. Like he just said, Tara, is what it sounded like, which he knew he knew I ran into the house to go to the bathroom, and he's a Pisces, super patient person. So it was really weird. And the way he said it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit. I was like, so I yelled out, hey, I'm just washing my hands. I'll be right out. And when I came out of the house, the way the house was set up, there was a back deck on the bottom, and the car was parked, and it was nighttime, but the lights were on, the headlights were on. And I came out and I stood there and I was kind of squinting, trying to see, what am I looking at? And what I saw was this wedge of a person, like this huge person sort of, but they were like squatting down in this weird way. And they had on like one of those white tank tops. And when I was looking at their face, because we had teenagers at the time, and I thought maybe it was one of the boys because they were all quite tall. And I looked and I realized that this person had a stocking squishing their face, a stocking over their face. And then I looked down and followed the whole line. And what I saw was that they had a gun. He was kneeling on Vic's back with a gun to the back of his head. So we were robbed. Yep, that happened. So we were robbed at gunpoint in the back of our house, basically. And that was like the most profound boundary violation ever. I hate telling this story because there's no way to tell it and not cry. And I don't want to cry because I'm teaching you about boundaries, not about my life or bawling my eyes out. So get it together, Terry. Okay. Here's the thing that was there were so many things that were so life-changing about that. One was that was the most profound boundary violation I'd ever experienced. So in that moment, I'm looking at the thing I never thought would happen. In 1 second, everything that became my life, my happiness, that was 22 years ago, could have just been gone. And I realized that it wasn't just that terrifying experience. And of course, obviously I was traumatized as hell. So was everyone. And, I got into lots of trauma therapy and I was already in therapy. But that made me know that I had already known that I didn't have good boundaries. But this was something where I was like, this is the worst boundary violation of all right now, this happening. Wow. So we survived it. Obviously, Vic did not get shot. I did not get shot. Yes, we got robbed. But that was the pivot point where I realized cancer didn't even impact me in this same deep, profound way, that almost losing, Anyway, almost losing that most important, not just Vic, but my family, the boys, the whole thing could have been gone in a second. And it really made me realize that working like an animal and being in the business, all the things I was doing, that was not living my best life, and that there had to be a way to live a better life than I was living. So you see why I barely ever tell that story? Because that was 22 years ago and I still can't tell it without feeling like, I don't know. I just want to cry. Anyway, shall we move into how life changed when I became, right, a boundary boss? Because it wasn't just that. It was that, tons of therapy, and moving into the whole life of what does it look like to learn these things that no one ever taught me. Because that was the whole thing. And then I realized I became a psychotherapist and realized that it wasn't just me that no one ever taught. It was nobody ever knew. Nobody else's parents taught them either. So it was both of those things. So yes, there was a million examples of me being a boundary disaster in my 20s. That one being the violation itself of someone being able to come into your life and just take what they wanted or take away what you value most was super terrifying to me. And it really inspired me to keep moving on this boundary path. Then I started opening up my therapy practice and realized how many other women need to know this. So here I am now teaching it to you. So this, I have to say, so many of you who've been on this path with me, the entire Boundary Palooza series, these 6 weeks that I've been going live all the time. And I value your time so much. And I so appreciate you being here. And I want you to think about the fact that you're here for a reason. I'm here for a reason, but you're certainly here for a reason as well. You want something. There's something that's not happening in your life. There is something that you're longing for, that you want. And I truly believe that learning effective communication and the boundaries, right? The actual language, boundary literacy, boundary strategies, having some kind of a tool belt, a methodology of understanding what this is, that will change your life. So I want you to stop doing the things that get in the way of you creating the life you want. And I want you to move into figuring out how to do it right. So today we're going to cover 4 concepts. The first is the pregnant pause. So we already did that in the visualization. If there's a lull in a conversation and you feel compelled to fill it, we're going to talk about why not to and what to do instead. The second thing up is not saying what you mean. So this can show up in a million insidious small ways. Literally saying, I'll let you go, rather than I need to go. And that sounds small, but the truth is, these are the small ways that we abandon ourselves. And also, we're not talking straight to the people in our life. And that's really important. The third concept is about misnaming emotions. We say we're annoyed when we're homicidal or when we're enraged, and they're not the same thing. And the more and again, many of us have been taught to do that because it's unladylike to be enraged or to be angry. It's not, like, people don't feel like it's the way to be. A lot of us have been taught out of our emotions if they were unacceptable emotions in the family system that you were in. And the final concept I'll hit today is about chronic complaining and how, again, we put people in our life. If we're the chronic complainer, then we put people in our life in this double bind where we'll complain about something, but we're not giving them an option to do something better. And a lot of times we'll try to draw the boundary and then we want to take the boundary back. So the person is really confused. You're like, well, it would have been nice if you had done whatever. And the person goes, well, okay, I'll do whatever now and there. Forget it. I got it. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Be honest. Be honest. Ever? Do you ever go, yeah, that'd be great. But then you don't do it. Then you don't let them do it. You're like, well, she really wanted to do it, she would have already done it, or whatever. We make up all these excuses because part of it is we're afraid of change as well, even though we want there to be change, right? Yes, everyone's saying yes, 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 because we're so conflicted about the change. So as much as we want change, we're afraid of change as well. And so are the people in our lives. So this fear of change, right? Fear of success, fear of failure are basically 2 sides of the same coin. And what is the coin? Fear of change. So we're going to be hitting all of those today. And I really want you to get as much as you possibly can. I hope that you've gotten a ton out of this entire season, the whole thing that I've heard from so many of you. But don't let this be it for you, right? Continue on this path of evolution, whether it's with me or whether it's with someone else. Just don't stop, because you're on to something that's important. And I really am so committed and invested in you getting what you want out of life. And I know that you can. So I really want you right now to just make a commitment to yourself that you will keep going with your own evolutionary process. Again, with me, with someone else, just continue this journey, because we've got some momentum going. So let's not give it up, All right, we know why it's important. Okay, the one thing I do want to say about why people don't keep going, why do people fail when it comes to learning this, is because it's difficult, is because it's overwhelming, is because it's confusing. And so we get a concept, but if you don't have time and repetition to have it become your new normal, it's so easy to be like, yeah, I get it, but I don't actually get how to do it in my real life. So to not set yourself up to fail, you've got to keep going. You need someone teaching. You need something like next step. What's the next step? What is the right next step? And of course, I'm going to tell you, but it's the truth. That's what I teach you in the course. So let's move into the pregnant pause. Now, you could look at this first concept of the pregnant pause. We could look at it like an uncomfortable silence or a pregnant pause. And for those of you who were here at the top and you imagined how you feel and what you do when there's a lull in the conversation, if you know that you feel compelled or almost it's like almost a compulsion to fill it, I want you to take a deep breath and understand that there's a reason you feel that way, but there's also a cost for doing that. So this is one of those sort of boundary killers, but it's also an opportunity killer. Why is it a boundary killer? Because you can choose that silence is pregnant with possibility. You could choose that. If you chose that, what would it look like? It would look like you being fine with there being some silence. You'd be shocked at what other people will share with you if you stop trying to covertly control the conversation. So I mean, it's overt and covert, but do you see what I mean? That when you get uncomfortable and you jump in to be like, oh, I heard it's going to rain tomorrow, or whatever the thing is, it's like, do you see that maybe what the other person would have said would have deepened the intimacy, or you would have learned something about someone else? So I'm going to ask you to change your mind, like to shift your perspective, because it's a mindset situation. Everything that I'm teaching you today, everything I always teach and everything I teach in Boundary Bootcamp, the first step in all transformation is awareness, right? Because how can we change anything that we are denying or that we're like unaware of? We're shoving it down in the unconscious mind, or we just don't realize we have a choice. Because I feel like with so many of us, that's really what it's about. That as a psychotherapist, I can tell you there's always two things going on. What something looks like, right? The thing we're doing, the conversation we're having, and then there's a parallel process going on. The parallel process is there being a silence and you feeling like being compelled, like compulsively desire to fill it, or the other person doing that. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone where you feel there's all this anxiety? For me personally, being in a conversation with someone who can't stand to have any silence, where there's no room for a creative or for me, a deep conversation to happen. There's just no room, because the person won't, the moment there's a lull, they're like, yo, yeah, and did you watch that thing? And did you do this thing? And I'm like, we could just stay on this topic and we could just allow ourselves to breathe and think, and maybe something creative would come out. It all goes back to codependency. And again, the illusion of control. So much of it is culture, family. If you were raised by people who, if your mom did this, if your dad did this, then you see it. So it isn't like, well, gee, why are you like this? All of us have reasons for the boundary dysfunction, for the ineffective communication style we may have. All of us have reasons, good reasons. There's nothing wrong with you because of that. And you could change nothing ever. And you'd probably be fine in your life, but you probably wouldn't be happy and super satisfied. So the whole point is, don't we want to be happy and super satisfied? I think we do, because so much of it is a projection. In this whole thing of filling what you might consider an uncomfortable silence, where I'm saying it's a pregnant pause that's pregnant with possibility, you might be doing that because you're afraid the other person, in your own mind, you may think that they're uncomfortable. But the real newsflash is that it's all about you. It's all about how you feel. You're uncomfortable. You're projecting that discomfort onto the other person, because how they feel is their side of the street, not your side of the street. Make sense? Right. So we want to stop doing that. It really is a wall of words as opposed to real deep conversation. When you feel compelled to fill, it's just a wall of words. And that's something that's between you. So it becomes a block instead of a bridge to deeper intimacy. So you take a deep breath and give yourself a minute and see if the next conversation you go into, you can be like, you know what? I'm going to be really aware of not jumping in, right? People are saying, yes, it makes so much sense. I get it. Good. I want you to try it, see. Because I think that so many of these things that I'm teaching you, they're easy if you can stay mindful enough to remember them in the moment. Embrace the space, take a breath, be present, and be brave. Be brave. A little bit of silence is not going to kill you. All right, moving into the second concept. So, not saying what you mean. So I gave the example of being on the phone and saying, okay, I'm going to let you go now. I've taken up enough of your time. When the truth is, you want to get off the phone. So how many of you have done this in your life? Like, if you were being really honest, how many of you do it out of politeness? Like, yeah, yes, need to figure out that part too. When I get steamrolled over, how do I impose the consequences? Okay, well, we're going to get into that, Erin. Don't worry. They're grabbing those for me. Yes. So people are saying, yes, they do that. Okay. So we know that it's not such a, yes, trying to be polite, shaking my head. Definitely do this. Yes, yes. Oh, yes. I've done that. Listen, you guys, hi, I know you because I was you. So these are all things I learned once I got onto the boundary boss track to stop doing, because the truth is they were counterproductive for what I wanted to create in my life, which was deep, abiding relationships where I knew people and they knew me, right? This is what I'm looking for. And even in a business situation, even if I'm not looking for deep intimacy, what I would find is that pregnant pause, or saying what, like actually saying what I want to say and not the other, would reveal something about the other person that would be beneficial to me. So it isn't just about, with the pregnant pause thing, it isn't just about deepening it. It's learning things about other people because you're not so uncomfortable that you're quickly filling it, right? And the same thing with speaking up. When you say, I'll let you go, the other person, whether they are cognizant of it or not, there's something manipulative about doing that. It's not the truth, right? When you want to go, saying, hey, this has been really nice, but I actually need to get off the phone. Let's talk again next week. Or when I'm talking to you, just get off the phone, right? That is something that people can feel like, oh, okay, that's true. Yes. And Norma said, how about I need to go now? Thanks for your time. Perfect, Norma. That's perfect, right? But that's the truth. I need to go now. I appreciate your time. It's a great way to end a conversation. But a lot of people will say, I'm going to let you go, or I don't want to bother you, or it's probably such a pain for you, all of this stuff. And when people do this to me now, it makes me crazy, where I'm like, what? Stop worrying about, like, I will worry about how I feel. How about you just say what you actually mean? And when you're dealing with people who are pretty healthy, they feel that. I immediately feel, stop projecting. Exactly. Please, please. Even if you are the one who called. Yes, even if you are the one who called. Even if you were the one who called, you can say, I called and I only had 8 minutes to talk, so I have to go. You can warn the person at the top if you feel bad about it, Exactly. And it's all, you're so right. Yassine said it's all about wanting to be liked. And that is the truth. We're so worried, but it's this, there's a point in life, and this is what boundary bossdom is about, where you just decide, like, you don't need the wake-up calls that I had. You personally don't need cancer, to work in entertainment, to be held up at gunpoint. You don't need that. I had those experiences. And I realized that real life, the life that's worth building, is one where you can effectively communicate, draw boundaries, get what you want, create the life that you love. That is what was most important. And that came out of those experiences. So you can get the benefit of those experiences without actually having those experiences. You're welcome. So right now, you make a decision. You're going to pivot. However you do it. I hope you do it by joining Boundary Bootcamp. That's how I hope you do it. But there's other ways that you can do it. But decide that you're going to wake up in your one and only life this time around, even if you believe in reincarnation. I'm talking about this life. I hate to quote Cher, but this is not a dress rehearsal, people. Like, we're live right now. So anything you think you're putting off till tomorrow, I'm going to do that. It's all right. It's not a big deal. I don't want to be dramatic. I don't want to be a drama queen. I don't want this. I don't want that. All these ways that we abandon ourselves and our boundaries and our true desires and our preferences and what we want, that sets us up to fail in creating lives and careers of abundance that we love. So I'm trying to break it down to like doable and bite-sized sort of snacks, like little things that you can do to make the small changes that eventually will create big transformation. But you need time and consistency. You need to be doing it regularly for a period of time. Because if not, it's so seductive to go back to the old way, because that's the way that you know. Hence why I created a course. All right, so you got that there's a reason why we should talk straight and not say the opposite of what we mean and not put it on the other person. Another way that people do this, and I hate this maybe more than anything, is when someone's like, I feel so guilty. I feel so guilty that, I mean, I told you I would call you and then I didn't call you and I just feel so bad and I'm such a shitty friend. And I'm like, hey man, you know what you did? I believe you did whatever you wanted to do. I didn't even think about it. So don't use me to feel guilty. I'm probably pretty sure that there are other worse things that you should feel guilty about. But because that person who always did that to me, it's like she was trying to make me feel bad that she felt bad. Like, I don't care that you feel bad. You did whatever you did. You didn't keep your word. You got bad internal boundaries. That's you. And that information I will use to decide where you go or don't go in my life. So nobody like that gets into the VIP section. I can tell you that much, because if you can't keep your word, I'm too busy for that in my life. Like, I'm not interested in that anymore. Although I used to be the person who didn't keep their word when I was 22. But, hopefully we grow and we change. Yes. RM was saying we can stop abandoning ourselves. Exactly. Because we've been habitually taught that there's something very noble about abandoning ourselves. But it's not true. Actually, it really isn't. So we have to make our own definition of what it means to be a good person, to be a woman, to be female, to be a mother, to be a partner. We have to decide, because these antiquated sort of, heteronormative stereotypes, they're done. They don't work if we're going to change the world. They don't. So this is what it's all about. And this is hopefully what you're learning from all the stuff that I'm putting out there for you. This is what I want you to learn. So moving into the, yes, the third one is misnaming our emotions. So I wonder if any of you have ever done this again. And I know you have, because part of what I based this last thing on was the feedback I got from you. So, thank you for co-creating it with me. So misnaming emotions. I was raised in a house that being angry was just out, nobody could be angry. I couldn't be angry and nobody else could be angry either. So I could never say, I'm so mad right now. That would never happen. But I could cry. I could transmute it into a less threatening, more acceptable emotion. I was upset. That was like my classic statement when I was in my early 20s. I was really upset. I was not upset. I was like so enraged. It was ridiculous, but I didn't have words. Yes, Norma said, I'm 62 and I'm just learning to accept that I can be angry. Yeah, because you know what? These are one of the emotions, the human emotions, that we actually don't have the power not to have. Oh, sure, we have the power to deny it, to avoid it. Norma says her default position was crying too. Yeah, it's so not empowering though when you're angry. And because if no one taught you how to handle it, it's like you'll be in a situation that you don't want to be, kind of like I just was. But that's all right. I'm going to give myself a pass on the my husband almost dying thing. But, in a work situation, if you're really enraged, it's almost like you can get into a situation where, because you're afraid to be enraged, that then your eyes well with tears. And like, that's the worst. You're like, oh my God, do not cry at work. Do not cry at work. Because again, it undermines your authority so much. But it happens because if we have been disavowing our anger for years, you don't think that anger goes away, do you? No, we're just shoving it down and then it comes out. I mean, how many of you just become an explosion? You just become a volcano. So you wait, you say nothing, file it away in the resentment file cabinet. And then you just like lose your shit. At some point, you're just like, you know what? And then the guilt. And then you feel like a terrible person. And then you're upset. And then the person's upset. And they're like, how were you not telling me that you've been angry for like 2 years, but you didn't tell me? None of it is functional. And all of it gets in the way of you being successful. And this is what we care about. So part of the beginning process and all of the stuff that we basically do in the course itself, are unpacking all of this. We have to understand, like, your downloaded boundary blueprint, what you learned about effective communication is totally different than what I learned and what anyone else on this live learned, even if it seems the same. But it's not, because the same way that your DNA, right? Like, no one else in the world ever before and ever again will have your exact DNA match. That's the same thing with your downloaded boundary blueprint. So there is a process, there's a series of steps that we take to unpack, how did my family respond to this? Where did I learn this? How was my early childhood experience? How was my school experience? How was my college experience? How was my experience in my 20s, or whatever age, however old you are? We go through every phase of your life, because the early childhood stuff, family of origin stuff is super important for us to figure out why you relate to boundaries the way you do right now. But there's also other experiences that get in there. And then there's nature and nurture. Some of you are empaths by nature. Some of you will be introverts by nature. Some of you are extroverts by nature. And all of those things impact the way that you relate to boundaries. So there's no way for me to be like, oh, here, just one size fits all. Just here, follow these 4 steps and you're going to be good. That it doesn't work like that, because it's got to be you literally finding the exact information that you need in order to move on to the next thing. Because these are things that we've repressed, things, we push things down that we don't even remember. Because listen, nobody asked you like, oh, who had the power in your family of origin? Were you allowed to have a private phone conversation? Like, all of the questions, there's so many like integration exercises within the course that I give you, because this is where you're gonna excavate the information. That's what we build the new boundary blueprint on, is you got to figure out what you don't want and what you're experiencing right now. That's the beginning of things shifting. So naming emotions what they actually are is a part of that, because it doesn't mean the same thing to say I was upset like I used to when what I really was enraged. They're different things. So we've got to learn to be able to say what it is. And when you actually understand yourself, forgive the people in your life. And when I say that, I don't mean like give them a pass. I mean, just let yourself out of resentment prison. Let's just say it that way. Forget forgiveness. Yes, forgive yourself. Kira said, I was shamed and mocked for crying at home. Mocking is just, it's so abusive. That is so abusive and so damaging. And you wonder why you wouldn't want to share how you really feel, or you wonder why you wouldn't want to cry in front of someone. But these are all the things that we've got to go back and be like, it's the kid within each one of us who's like, I'm still holding on to that experience. That experience is still charged. So what we want to do is move that experience up and out by writing it. We do a lot of letter writing to the original perpetrators. You can send them, you can not send them, and it doesn't even matter if the person's dead, because so much of the time it's just about you and the child within you. So much of the time when we have disordered boundaries, we are literally having a transference to other people. I call them repeating boundary realities, where someone will remind us of someone, whether we had, let's say, a bully dad, and then maybe you got a bully boss. You suddenly become 10 or 15 years old in your interaction with that person, for how afraid you are, for how much you can't speak up. And these are all things that on the surface, they may seem like these very complicated psychological theories, sort of, and they are, but I've taken them and made them super accessible. I've taken all the fat off, everything that is non-essential, because you don't know. And I've also left out everything that doesn't work, because I've been doing this for 22 years. So some people think certain theories are great and certain interventions are great. What I put into this course is only the ones that actually work. Only the ones that I know create results for people. And I also know that you're very smart. And listen, I'm pro therapy, right? I've been in therapy for 30 years, but I don't think you need to be to become a boundary boss. I actually think that you have the power to do it way before them. Hence why I created an 8-week course. Anyway, the last thing on the list that I want to talk about is habitual complaining. And there's something that people do. A lot of times you don't even know you're doing it. It is so, hence the word habitual. It is so ingrained as a way of getting attention, as a way of, and again, so much of the time, this type of complaining is the example I gave at the top when we had our eyes closed, where we complain, but we don't let the person change. We complain, but we don't give them anything positive or any like way of, well, you did this thing, and we don't tell them what they could do better. We just go, you know what, you suck because you did that. Okay, well, there you go. That's the end of that conversation. And how is that productive? It isn't. And it's fine if all you want to do is be right. But if you actually want to build deep intimacy, if you want to be seen, known, heard, then you need to be willing to actually put yourself out there and say, hey, you know what? You said you'd call me at 7. You didn't. In the future, if you're not going to call, would you please send me a text so that I'm not waiting around for you to call or whatever? We have to give an option of like, what is the next? What is the thing they could do instead of the thing that we really didn't like that they did? But with habitual complaining, again, so much of the time it's a learned behavior. So are any of you like second generation habitual complainers, be honest? Are you always talking about some negative stuff? Whether it's the weather, whether it's other people, whether it's how you're always getting screwed, you always get the short end of the stick. And do you realize, if it is you, that people, you start complaining, and whether they're doing it publicly or not, you know what they're doing? They're like, oh my God, all this person ever does is complain. I can't stand it. Like, it is bad for your health. And I've talked about this before, but it's true. There are actually studies done that say being around, you don't even have to be the one complaining. If you're around a chronic complainer, 30 minutes or more a day, it does something to the hippocampus of your brain. Like literally you're losing brain cells. That's how toxic it is. So this is something you really, really want to be aware of and not do. But again, what does it require? You got to wake up in your life. You've got to wake up in your life and be willing to look at yourself. Be willing to be like, a lot of people don't want to hang out with me. Why? Right? A lot of people make excuses that they can't or they have to leave. Am I a big complainer? And I'm not talking about if you have something you're going through something that's real and you want to brainstorm about it. That's not complaining. But complaining really is just being like talking about the same bad relationship, the same stupid best friend who betrayed you, the same terrible boss. That's someone who just keeps talking about that stuff. Wake up, because you don't want to be that person. You know why? Because nobody wants to be around that person. And then you're like, but I always feel rejected. Yeah. How do you feel? And maybe you're the one who's around chronic complainers. How does it feel to be around that element? It doesn't feel great. When your communication is faulty, out of balance, disordered like that, it impacts your ability to be fully present in your relationship and your lives. It's not just that it's not cool to do. It's literally blocking you from doing the things you want to do. And you can choose. Just like I pivoted through my traumatic and dramatic experiences, you can decide right now on this live that this will be the moment in your life that you're going to pivot. So they're collecting the questions for you, and I want to inspire you. For those of you who've asked, for those of you who want to do it, I've done everything that I can to make this 8-week experience doable for you. It's small, it's bite-sized, it's 8 weeks. It's not like 3 months. You don't have to move to India and sit on top of a mountain, by yourself meditating. Literally, you do this with a couple hundred women. It's amazing, led by me, and I am a damn good GPS to find what it is that you need. Basically, there's so many questions that have still come in from Boundary Palooza. We had about 10,000 questions total, and I think I answered about 8,000. I'm not kidding. But there's so much more. Because listen, people want to know, how do you draw boundaries in relationships, long-term relationships, short-term relationships? What do I do if I'm already in a relationship for 20 years and I didn't draw boundaries, but now I want to? These are all techniques that you can learn, because it wouldn't be the same technique a new relationship, you would have one technique that you would learn to effectively communicate. Dating, right? Even on apps, I actually handle that in the course itself because it's like the Wild West of dating. It's a whole new world. So you can learn what you're saying to someone is always giving them information about you. And you want to make sure that you're giving them the right information. Changing in any relationship that's already established does not come from you saying it's got to change. Something's got to change. That doesn't change anything. That just alerts the other person that you're unhappy, but they have no idea what to do. So you really need a structured, this module goes on top of that module, goes on top of that module, goes on top of that module. Everything is goes in the logical order of the way that it needs to go for you to basically go, okay, I'm moving from this step 1, step 2, step 3, and I've made it as affordable as possible so that you could actually do it. Listen, none of us are born knowing these techniques. And actually, most of us were taught not to have them. We were literally given praise for being nice, right? For not making a stink, for not, being too demanding. You want to be ladylike. I mean, how many of us, we all know this. I know this whole crew. Are you good girls? Were you raised to be a good girl? Hello, I was. I don't know one of my friends who wasn't. And that is basically learning. It doesn't mean you can't be a nice person and be a boundary boss, because of course you can be. But do you understand how profound this is? Everyone's saying, yes, 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 I was raised to be a good girl. Of course you were. But that is in the unconscious mind so deeply that we are basically taught to abandon ourselves on a regular basis. And I can tell you right now, I've taught thousands of women all over the globe how to do this. It's working in their lives right now. And I don't care where you've been before, right now at this moment, you can also learn if you're willing to change, if you're willing to be guided, right? Because I've created the method, the toolbox, all the steps that you need in a course. This is basically how you go from I'm a boundary disaster to I'm a boundary master. I've made it as easy as possible. So what do you get in the course? I'm just going to tell you, you got 7 video modules. You got 7 integration exercises. You have 7 therapeutically designed meditations. Those are the guided meditations that I create for you so that during that week, we're hitting your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. And then there's a whole live element to the course because you can't just do it on your own. I need to be there answering your questions and helping you figure out the language and what it is you want to do when we get to the second half of the course. The first half of the course, there's all of this going back in time. And I give you bonus weekly videos because I wanted you to see real life experiences, because I know that this is how some people learn best. So I gave you client case studies, my own personal stories of transformation, of bad material boundaries, emotional boundaries, because sometimes that's the best way for people to learn. You have access, of course, we have a members only private group where we're active all of the time. So you have support from other women. There's a money back guarantee, 14-day money back guarantee. If you try it and you do all the work and you tell me that not one thing shifted, you didn't learn anything, I will give you your money back. There is lifetime access to everything that is in the course, lifetime access. And I have people going back to it all the time. It literally becomes it's like a resource, like a touchstone for you to come back to. And then, of course, there's bonuses. So I've created the Boundary Bible so that you have every phrase you'd ever need in any boundary situation, whether it's with your stupid, nosy neighbor, whether it's with Bob at the office, whether it's with your narcissistic ex-husband. I've come up with things that you can make your own, right? Like I can't say you should use these words exactly. I say, here's a perfect frame for you to put your special sauce on, because you wouldn't say it the way that I would say it. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. Then I give you the Hello Goodbye Speed course I created because so many of you tell me that you get stuck in phone conversations, in relationships, in projects that you don't want to be in. And there is a whole technique for being aware and not getting stuck in that situation. The third big bonus is the quick tip video guide library. So that is for those of you, each one of these is separate. how to draw boundaries if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, how to draw boundaries with an addict, how to draw boundaries with a narcissist, how to draw boundaries with your nosy family members, neighbors, coworkers. So I created small things. Blended families was a big one because a lot of people are in the blended family situation, but I didn't make it a major part of the course because a lot of people are not in that situation. So this is a bonus library where you can say, okay, these things apply to me. I'm interested in those. And then there's a course, Indecisive No More, which is all about being able to make a decision. For those of you who told me you really struggle, and it is so painful and so time consuming. So you can choose. I mean, listen, you could choose the way that I did this whole entire thing, which is like took decades and zillions of dollars and all kinds of traumatic things. I hope you don't choose that way. You know, therapy, how much does that cost? Communication coaching, how much does that cost? I don't know, $10, $20, $30,000 a year. Or you could just let me help you. The strategic, streamlined way. I've created something that I took all the guesswork out. It's a methodology. It's a toolbox. That's the way I think that you should go. Let me be your super accurate GPS to find the answers that you need inside of yourself to become a boundary boss. So how do you do it? So at this point, you're like, how much does it cost? You can start right now for $97 a month. 10 months, $97 a month. This course is definitely worth thousands of dollars without a doubt. And I'm giving it to you for $797. You can pay it once. If you pay one time, the $797, you also get 2 video calls with me in a small group where we get to see each other. Those are kind of like integration calls on top of the 7 calls you already have. If you want the most flexible plan, that is the $97 a month for 10 months. And you can start right now. Those of you who've been chomping at the bit to do it, go to terrycole.com/do-it. And you can literally sign up right now for that because it is closing today. Tonight at midnight, the door is closed. We start on Wednesday. So if you've been on the fence, I'm staying here to answer your questions. I want to answer your questions. I've also extended a bonus that so many of you asked me about. I just was like, forget it, just extend it. The No Narc course, which is basically, I finally created a course on narcissism for you because you've all been asking for so long. So if you join the course today, before midnight tonight, you will also get the No Narc course. I added it back in. We extended it because it was like a fast action just for the first day when the court was open 10 days ago. And now, because so many of you asked, I extended it. You're getting it. So if you want to do it, if you need a little more incentive to do something for yourself, the No Narc course will also be in there. Plus, we have a bonus from Energy Lara, where it's about energy protection and cord cutting type of things, because she's our resident energy medicine person. Because, you know, when you change the way you are in the world, you change your energy and you need to learn how to protect your energy a little bit. So that's always good. I'm going to hit your questions right now. So I'm moving over to that, which is here. And we've already dropped everything in if you look down the chat, in any chat, whichever one you're in, you'll be able to see what it is. Well, hi, everyone. And here are the questions. Anna says, finally placed a boundary with an extended family member who only contacted me in times of trouble and would not return my calls in good times. Thank you. I'm saying go, Anna, boundary boss in training. You're doing it. Will there be another boundary boot camp like next year or anything? I really want to do it, but I can't. I've already done other courses this year and I don't have the money. You know what? Right now the plan is to do it, but honestly, I really am writing a book. I feel like I've been writing a book forever, but I am. So as of now, I'm going to say probably, but I can't like swear on a stack of Bibles because I really don't know what's going to happen. It depends on when the book is due. Consequences, need to figure out that part too. When I get steamrolled, how do I impose the consequences? Part of it is you have to go through the process, Erin, of deciding what are appropriate consequences. So, you know, in the course, we handle it like this. You have boundary first timers, the people that you've never said anything to, and then you have boundary repeat offenders. These are the people that it makes sense to add a consequence to. So it depends on what the boundary violation is. That's how it has to be commensurate to what happened. So let's say someone being late, a very normal consequence would to ask them, hey, I've asked you 3 times. 3 times you've said if you were going to be late, you would text me, but you haven't. The next time you're late and you don't text me, I'm going to eat without you and I'm going to leave your food on the table or whatever. So do you see what I'm saying? That we're trying to have the consequence make sense for whatever the boundary violation actually was, instead of it being like, we don't want it to be extreme if the boundary violation was an extreme, but we also don't want to just let it go because nothing changes. With a boundary repeat offender, if you don't impose something, nothing ever changes. So yes, someone was talking about, because the live streams are during my work hours, I cannot join. Will I be able to have the questions answered afterwards? Absolutely, Kathleen. We take all of your questions. You're going to be submitting in the course itself. You're always submitting questions that get considered for the live streams. And then everything is recorded, of course. And we also transcribe everything for those of you who might want to read it rather than watch it. For some people, it's easier if you commute. Maybe you don't want to watch a video. So yes, Kath, we have a lot of people because we have people from all over the world. Last time we had women from 25 countries in the course. And so picking a time where everybody could be there, you just can't. So I would say, probably at least 60% of the people are watching it after the fact. So the answer to that is yes. Hold on. Yeah, do we get to participate? Here we go. I'm moving down. Here we go. Is there a way to stop the other person from jumping in to fill the silence? Oh, yes, Suzanne, of course there is. Of course there is. When that other person jumps in, you will use your body language and say, oh, hey. So we use the stop sign. And you just say, oh, hey, Betty. Can you wait a minute? I was thinking. Because here's the thing. If you don't want the silence filled, but they're not interrupting you talking, it's okay to say, you know what, actually, I'm just thinking about something. You know what I mean? So you can stop them in that way. Or if it's someone you're close to, you can simply say, would you mind if we just sat here in silence for a moment? And they may be like, all right, I don't know, maybe. Like, that's weird, So that's my 2 cents on it. Or you can give them a heads up ahead of time. Like, it's interesting. Just tell them. I've been learning a lot about communication and about myself. And I realized that in the past, I would always fill what seemed like an uncomfortable silence. And now I'm kind of just letting it be. So, or whatever, and see if that has. Hold on. We're moving on to it. How to set boundaries when you've never had them in a long-term relationship, being married 15 years? Well, Kath, that's the whole thing. We do it slowly but surely. But that is a process that you have to learn. We don't broadcast it. Throughout the course itself, we just take our time. We don't say anything until really we're done, because it takes time for you to get into the position of understanding your own 50% of why you haven't had boundaries in your relationship for so long. So before we go, it's about me changing Bob, it really isn't. It's about you understanding you. And when you start to change energetically, the other person, trust me, is going to sense it. I was just writing this part of the book where I had a couple where this was happening, where she was changing in therapy with me and he started super sensing something was going on. And that's happened so many times. So you might be surprised that how, when you change, how you don't have to actually have as many conversations as you would think, because you start changing your behavior to have better boundaried behavior. Does that make sense? Hold on. Do we get to participate in the calls at all if we choose the $97 a month? Oh, of course you do. I mean, it's full. The only thing that the pay in full people get is there's 2 additional calls, but you get every single thing else, all the other bonuses. And of course, you're a full member. If you do the payment plan, you are just as much a member of the course with all the same rights as anyone who pays in full. So it's not like second-class citizen or anything. Absolutely no problem. Okay, so Yassine said, I'm new to this channel. Is it just for women? Maybe I'm not in the right place. Hey, listen, I love having men on the YouTube channel. The course itself is just for women. I'm sorry. I hope you learned something anyway, though. I am in the process, though, of collecting data to create some courses for men. So just hang in and hang out in the YouTube channel. You certainly can, because we've got lots of actually got lots of men on the YouTube channel. So someone said, what about when your anger isn't validated? Someone also, hold on, I'm going to get to that. Someone also said, can you tell me again the URL? It's terrycole.com/doit, DOIT. And I think they dropped it in there, so you can see it if that's where you want to go to. The question about your anger being validated. Part of the process of you becoming a boundary boss is you knowing that your anger is valid. So we're not going to need them to validate our anger, but we are going to need them to respect the way we feel, which is basically different. And it's important that you know the differences in those two things. Because you have a right to your anger, whether the other person thinks you do or not. Make sense? And we don't need their approval. And this is a big part of what I actually teach in the course is we have to understand the difference between giving context and trying to convince the other person, because there's no power in trying to convincing them, and you don't need their approval. And once you really get that, it changes the way that you are in the world, the way you are in business, the way you are with your friends, because you get it. You know that how you feel matters, right? You know that how you feel matters. So, no, this course is for women. Here we go. Someone else, make sure I'm not, okay. Moving on to, all right, last question. I'm going to be traveling the first week, which is the second. Is it still okay if I take the course? Someone said, and sure, it is, of course, because everything is recorded. And actually on Wednesday, it's just a learning the lay of the land. It's a welcome live stream, because you'll always have at least 1 week with the material before I actually break it down, take your questions. So you always have at least 7 days with the new material, because you will need it. All right. Any other questions? I think, you guys, I'm going to stand another few minutes. Are there any other questions in here? Thank you. You've helped me so much in so many ways. I believe I'm a lost child coming from a narcissist, dysfunctional family. I've been trying to set boundaries, but I can't seem to stick to them. Sammy, that you're not alone. You're not alone. This is something that it's difficult, especially if you come from a family where there's a lot of dysfunction, whether it's addiction, whether it's narcissism, whether it's abuse, whether it's chaos, because you have all of these things working against you. But I think that it really helps for you to do this on your own. Like, we've got to get the skills, because if you don't have the skills, it's like trying to go into a conversation with someone where you know a little bit of a language, and they're having like this in-depth conversation with you and you have no friggin' idea what they're talking about. When you become more fluent, when you have better boundary literacy, better communication literacy, what happens? You are so much more equipped to go into that conversation from an empowered place, knowing that as long as you know the truth, everything is going to be okay. It's not about, remember, one of the biggest pivot moments is remembering that it's not about changing them. It's about us growing and changing. And that just speaking up is where your healing actually happens. So even if the other person doesn't give you what you want, it doesn't mean that it was a fail, right? It's a win. If you have the courage to say something, it's a win. I just want to teach you how to say something so that it'll be the most productive, and we create the most expansion for you to get what you want out of life. That's it, you guys. That's all I want for you. So if you guys want to do it, now's the time. terrycole.com/do-it. I'm also from a narc family. I find that it's best to speak to family members one-on-one as much as possible. Oh yeah, group dynamics in any dysfunctional family is a total nightmare. It is like there will always be the pile-on, because in super dysfunctional families, you always have the scapegoat. So no matter what happens, everyone is going to be like, oh yeah, it's all about Betty. Betty is the problem. At least that's one thing they can agree on. It's almost like there's an identified patient within the family system, but it's so painful to be that person. But you know what? It's not, it ain't fun being the golden child either, though, the hero child. Those are all those roles are very depersonalizing, no matter which one you get, because I was the golden child or the hero child in my family system, and that shit is exhausting too. So it's not like, so you're saying I'm the scapegoat of my family. Lucy's saying she needs to learn to say no. Yeah, but you need to learn to say no without all the fear, without all the trepidation, without all the anxiety. And when you know that you have a right to say no, it shifts everything. We stop looking for all of this approval outside of ourselves. And keep in mind, when we do that, we're always like, we're cueing people in to how to treat us. When we're like, is that okay? Is that okay? Is that good with you? Is that okay? And the person's like, wait a minute. No, that's not okay. Do you know what I mean? And when you just learn, like the Hello Goodbye Speed course teaches you to just keep on walking, and you're like, how you doing, Bob? Keep on going. We put ourselves in this position energetically, body language wise, emotionally, and script wise, to be really empowered. And I promise you that these things you can learn and you can try them on until they fit. In the beginning, it's going to be weird. Of course it is. But that's like anything. Anything you learn, anything that's new. Speaking a new language is weird until you're more fluent in it, right? So being uncomfortable is not going to kill you. But never learning how to effectively communicate or to really become boundary literate absolutely can become the glass ceiling in your own life that of your own making. So if you want to create it, and hey, like I said, just commit to continuing to do it. Just commit to more of this. Just commit to knowing that boundaries are important. Becoming a boundary boss is important. I hope it's with me, but maybe it'll be with someone else. Just don't stop, because stopping means you stay exactly where you are right now. And you wouldn't be on this live if you weren't seeking something. So I hope that something that I taught you today added value to your life. That's really what I hope. That's what I want for you always. As you know, you guys are it for me. You're my whole trip. I just want to empower as many people on planet Earth, women in particular, as I possibly can. So I want to say thank you for hanging out with me during Boundary Bootcamp Season 2019 and Boundary Palooza. Any questions you have, you can just go to Team TC. They're the best. You can email support@terrycole.com, and we are standing by between now and midnight. So if you have questions, we're here to answer them. Thank you. I so appreciate you. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful rest of your week. And as always, what am I going to say? I'm going to say, take care of you.